We were the acquirers. We did it. We did while I was there, three major reorganizations involved outside consultants. We removed a lot of positions, but I think the theme that I remember very clearly from those days is that we communicated to every person in the organization. And that was kind of a theme that stayed with me. I'm kind of a communications freak. Um, and I remember saying that whether um, people are leaving, changing their jobs, or staying put, everyone had to be communicated with personally in the day. And I now read about people being fired by email, text, Zoom, whatever. I'm just appalled. And I think a major thing I've always believed is you got to have integrity, sincerity, straightforwardness, and that is the heart of good communications and probably the heart of employee relations. I used to do training courses with Parker Hannifin there. We used to do weekly training courses, and we had a course called Management in Action, the sales cycle, uh, negotiating skills. We did all these. And even when I was doing all this training on some of these important, let's say, skill sets, I never once thought about going into general management. I mean, I was the HR person. I liked it. And until my boss mentioned it, I'd never thought about doing it. And it is very unusual because when you've spent a career counseling and talking to people like I have, most people, their big ambition is to become the CEO or managing director or call it whatever you like. And that never occurred to me. And it's even stranger because I grew up in a business family. My dad was a bit of an entrepreneur. Um, I absolutely hated the way he managed people. But anyway, I it may have been that told me I just want to stay on this HR bent. And it was probably when I reflect back, a certain lack of ambition. I wasn't particularly good at school, and my wife, who is much brighter than me, said sort of found this report in the attic when I was about 15, and it said a very average year for a mediocre student. So I think I kind of lacked a bit of confidence about what I could do. My boss said, Nigel, you're so involved in the business, you need to run something. And I said, no, 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 no. I want to be the biggest and best HR person I can. And he said, no, no, you really should be a line manager. So that's what changed it. Before computers were really what we all worked with, I would go through the financial reports and ask all these questions about why things were like the way they were. Many HR people, I think this may be an important point on this podcast, don't venture out of their very tight HR stream. And I would ask questions about, various P&L items in stores and other performance aspects of the company. So I think he saw that. And I think he was impressed with the fact that we'd gone through all this reorganization so well. We'd actually handled it better than most companies. So I think it was the organizational skills that I had, I guess. But I mean, I'm thinking now a very long time ago. I had several challenges. One was I'd never run anything outside of HR. Secondly, I was taking on multiple geographies, multiple cultures, and as a result of that, multiple different store types. And Burger King was very embryonic in those days in Europe. So there was all kinds of challenges. So I kind of threw myself into it. But I think the thing that really hits me when I think back to it, I said to my team, look, I'm not the expert. You're the expert in marketing, operations, finance. You're going to have to teach me these functions. I've done a big HR job, but I've not managed in finance or whatever. And I got the team to help me and support me. And I think one other thing I did is I employed a coach who's a very good friend of mine even today to be the eyes and ears of everyone. And he would get hold of me, usually at a pub in the UK, and say, "Why the hell did you do this?" And he'd sit down and analyze what I'd done and what he'd heard I'd done. And I think that created another thing that I think I'm very positive about is openness. I think that was a big concern. I mean, are they going to take me seriously? Are they going to think I can do this? And I think that was made even worse by within a fairly short time, I had to go and do a strategic proposal for what was going to happen in Europe, Middle East, and Africa for Burger King. And my boss fed this back that his boss, a very dour Scotsman called Ian Martin, told him, "This guy hasn't got a strategic bone in his body." Well, that was pretty brutal feedback. And shortly after, I remember I went to Ashridge Management College in the UK and went on a course on strategy and finance, which was only a week, but was fantastic. And I think sometimes people miss the opportunity to take themselves out of an organization and perhaps go on something like a course to try and think more deeply about subjects. But he was probably 100% right. So that kind of underscored the concern. But I think you just have to take these bumps and keep going and keep trying to improve. And I've always had this obsession with self-improvement. But no, you're right. I think when I first did the job, I'm sure everyone kind of joked behind the back about me. But as we gradually got more successful, and I had a very good finance guy who I worked with, and he taught me a lot. And then he changed jobs, and I had a lady, excellent CFO working in Europe. They were very instrumental in my development. So I think it comes back, even if you've got concerns, and you have to just leverage all the resources you've got. One of the things that I did when I was doing that management development job at Grand Met, when I was sort of recruiting and supporting out the door various people in senior positions, is standards. And I think I really instilled that into the organization. We had to get the best people because the best people would win. So I think I had this outsider in view of what was needed with people. I think I also was pretty good at dealing with people and situations. And that took me into another area of learning, working with franchisees. I mean, Burger King had corporate stores and franchise stores. I'd never dealt with franchisees directly. And now this is all in 91, 2. If you move forward 30 years, I'm considered a franchising expert. And it's kind of weird, but I learned in those days and I applied a lot of the skills. And in fact, my philosophy on franchising actually comes about from a lot of work I did in labor relations in those early days. One of the things I say in all my speeches, if you want to develop yourself, get on a board. Doesn't matter whether it's a school board, church board, social club board, football club board, or a public company. The learning is phenomenal. So you're right. When I went for the interviews at Papa John's, I embraced my board experience as well as my HR experience. When I went for the job at Dunkin, where we were owned by 3 different private equity firms, so think about that. So a bit of a challenging situation. I had 18 interviews, which is a bit over the top. But anyway, I think the fact I really understood the bigger picture. Remember, this is the guy who didn't have any strategic skills. I think I managed to develop those through being on boards. Blockbuster, where we saw growth and opportunities, and I got a fantastic view of the world. I think all that helped me do these interviews really well because I'd seen so many different things. So now, again, going back to HR, the things you want to really, I think, reinforce if you've got an HR background like me is your people skills, obviously organization, managing, motivating, all the basic management skills. But I think you have to embrace on top of that a vision. Too many HR people, I think, get caught up in the humdrum of the administration of it all when we should be always looking forward. And one of my favorite phrases is the slowest day you will see is today, because the world will continue to pick up pace and get faster. And I think that requires a lot of vision about what's going to happen in the future.